You know what? What the heck? For the memes, let's keep it. Let's keep it. Let's try. Greetings, everyone. I am glad to be here, and I am glad that you are here. Today we're going to be playing a deck that we've actually played on the channel before, but it's kind of been a while, and I figured the audience has changed and had some turnover and grown since the last time we played it, so I figured why not give it a little bit of a rehash. Today we're going to be playing around a very, very sweet card called Brash Taunter. Many of you are familiar, but many may not be. Whenever Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponents. So think Stuffy Doll, for those of you who have been around a while. The catch is, Brash Taunter can also pay 3 mana and tap. Brash Taunter fights another target creature. So you can kind of get your Stuffy Doll to fight your opponent's really big creatures and stuff. And the implications are obvious, since it is an indestructible creature. You block their 6/6 and they take 6 damage. It makes attacking into it very difficult and things. And that is absolutely true. But of course, we are going the next step deeper in this deck. Of course, having a bunch of damage-based board sweepers. Sweltering Suns, Anger of the Gods, just to make sure to keep the board clear, to buy us time to slam Brash Taunter. But then, on top of that, deal damage to Brash Taunter, which of course also deals damage to the opponent's face as well. Then, of course, the rest of the early game, besides the board sweepers, are a bunch of random removal spells. Bonecrusher Giants, Abrades for both artifacts and creatures, Shatterskull Smashing, which helps pad the land count and is a removal spell. Shivan Fire, which is a very strong card for what we're asking of it. A lot of folks will find it out of place, maybe. But don't forget, we can pay all 5 mana and deal 4 to Brash Taunter, which later on in the game can potentially be kill shot as well. And just that extra little bit of damage, very strong. There are other cards that could fill this role, but keep in mind, again, the fact that it is 1 mana in the early game, or as much mana as we need in the late game. The flexibility is actually quite strong here. Spikefield Hazard, similarly to the Shatterskull Smashing, helps pad the land count, but is also a removal spell. The fact that it also exiles can be relevant in the graveyard-style matchups. Think Croxes and things. And then, of course, a couple of Mind Stones to help us ramp. Well, what is the rest of the deck? I'm sure, as I referenced earlier, you were glancing questioningly at Brash Taunter. You may also be like, what the heck is this card? Golden Guardian, 4 mana, 4/4 Defender. So a little weird, but pay 2 mana. Golden Guardian fights another target creature you control. When Golden Guardian dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. Yes, I have flipped Golden Guardian when playing this deck in the past, but that is not the goal of this card. It's actually a combo piece. Notably, it does not require you to tap Golden Guardian when you do the fighting. So, Golden Guardian fights Brash Taunter for 2 mana. You play Golden Guardian on 4, Brash Taunter on 5, untap, play a land on 6, you have 6 mana available. Golden Guardian fight, fight, fight. Opponent takes 12 to the face. Just like that. I have in the past played 4 Golden Guardians, and it's a good time, but I do think the deck isn't quite as good with all 4, because it doesn't do much on its own. It needs to be the combo. But it is, do not underestimate it. It is very powerful. It is a little Splinter Twin-esque in a lot of situations, particularly if you've maybe seen it coming in advance and been able to deal some damage with things like Chandra Torch Defiance and Bonecrusher Giant, things like that, to the opponent's face, so they're not starting at the full 20. You know, you can just kind of kill them out of nowhere, right? On that note, the rest of the deck, some common, very powerful planeswalkers you may be familiar with. Chandra Torch Defiance is a very real threat. Being able to ultimate relatively quickly. The fact that it's also removal is very, very important here. And can -4 on our own Brash Taunter, again, for if that would matter, for lethal, things like that. The other one is Chandra Awakened Inferno. Now, no, Fiery Emancipation, Chandra Awakened Inferno does not work the way you want it to. Chandra Awakened Inferno +2s. Each opponent gets an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 1 damage to you. That means the opponent controls the emblem. Fiery Emancipation says if a source you control would deal triple damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. The problem is if a source you control. So, of course, the opponent controls the emblem. It does not lightning bolt their face multiple times a turn, unfortunately. But the money on this card is it's also a sweeper. So more Anger the Gods, Sweltering Suns style stuff. But it's also spot removal for larger creatures, -X. But the -X can also go on our own Brash Taunter. If Chandra Wake Inferno comes down, -X equals 6 on the Brash Taunter. That can easily be lethal as well. But notably, you know, of course, the emblems are good as well. But this spell can't be countered. There are some number of controlling style decks running around, and the fact that it can't be countered is very, very good here. Of course, the last card to talk about, Fiery Emancipation. It does what you would expect here, you know, tripling up our damage-based removal things and stuff. But keep in mind, it's also a very, very solid combo piece with Brash Taunter. If a source you control would deal damage, so let's say Shivan Fire, it deals triple that damage instead. So 2 damage would deal 6 damage to Brash Taunter. But then Brash Taunter would deal 6 to the opponent, but that's a source you control dealing damage. So then that source is tripled from 6 to 18 from a lonely Shivan Fire, right? Now, if you make it a 3 damage burn spell like Abrade or any of our board sweepers, the 3 gets tripled to 9, which gets tripled to 27, right? So it is a little memey, but we are here for a good time, not a long time. Some Scavenger Grounds. Oop, I have the wrong land in there. That is supposed to be a Field of Ruin. I will trade that out. But then Relic of Progenesis, Rolling Vortex, things like that for the sideboard. Another Chandra Torch Defiance, another Chandra Awaken Inferno, more board sweepy style stuff, some fries, right? You know, this is all pretty conventional things out of the sideboard. Another Scavenger Grounds, again, for graveyard style hate, but also making sure to hit our land drops. Don't underestimate this card. Very strong card. But either way, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the games. Well, folks, this is an interesting hand. We have both of our Fire Emancipations, which for the memes, oh boy, it would be tripled, and then that would be tripled as well. The deal is, it's basically a mulligan. Our opponent is, you know, clearly a slower style deck. They're playing Yori and Sky Nomad, so we might have time. You know what? What the heck? For the memes, let's keep it. Let's keep it. Let's try. This is almost certainly a mistake, but I've made those before. You know? Alright, Ghost 2234 leads on a Hallowed Fountain tapped. Alright, well, then let's go ahead and get a Spikefield Cave down tapped of our own. And just keep trying to make land drops so we can get up to these Fire Emancipations. Keep in mind, if the opponent goes too slowly, then the Bugbear does do a reasonable job of pressuring our opponent. Hey, that's exactly the sort of thing we wanted, given the context of our hand. If nothing else, that does allow Den of the Bugbear to attack next turn, right? Alright. Yes, these things are interesting. I think we are going to do this. And just pressure our opponent's life total just a touch here. Kick the can down the road. Get a little board presence. Make our opponent just a little bit uneasy. Obviously, this does get out of hand very, very quickly. Our opponent will need to look for an answer. Gonna pass? I mean, these things are fine with us, opponent. You gotta know. Alright. Opponent drops to 11. We would still like another land, to be sure. But, of course, our opponent kind of looking relatively Gandalf-y. You know, some of those blue-white control, Azorius control shenanigans. We've got to watch out for counterspells and the like. So, just, that's why we haven't gone for, like, Bonecrusher Giant, for instance. Yeah. That's got to feel pretty bad from our opponent, that Doomscar. Interesting. Well, considering our opponent has shown us all of this, we're just gonna keep getting right after them, you know? Turns out creature lands are very, very good if your game plan is sweep the board and stuff, right? All right, well, that's awkward. Not a huge fan of that. When it gets in, does that mean another Alrund's Epiphany, folks? No. Okay. Well, we're going to do this. See what our opponent has to say. We're kind of expecting maybe a big shark here. Oh, okay. They're just trying to take a bunch of extra turns. All right. How do we want to respond? I think it's just kill that. Kill that. Because we don't want them to be able to just kill us with those couple of birds. It's strongly possible they do have maybe another Alrund's Epiphany or something like that, right? And just being able to keep attacking us with those two birds could make things really, really awkward. Yeah, our opponent adds Yori into hand. They probably want to get another clock down before they... Yeah, these things are reasonable. Before they start taking all these extra turns, right? So... I guess we're going to take this opportunity to slam a Fiery Emancipation. That makes things pretty awkward on our opponent. The Abrade now just kills Yori and Sky Nomad, but so does the 2 mana, or I'm sorry, the 1 mana Shivan Fire. We don't have to kick it anymore. The Bonecrusher Giant, of course, can go straight to the face for 6. You know, our opponent's in a touch of an awkward situation right here. All right, that is almost certainly Alrund's Epiphany, but easily could be a counterspell as well. So we're going to look to see how many of these spells it takes to kill our opponent, you know? Opponent rewinds. We Abrade. We Stomp. Allow all that to happen. We're going to try and get in with our 1/1, see if we can connect. And sure enough, goes to 2234. Pays the ultimate price. But as you can see, folks, a little bit silly there. You know, having the second Fire Emancipation. It was very difficult for us to find an opportunity to resolve the first one. You know, a little greedy for the keep, but it did work out. It did work out. So no complaints. No complaints here. We're going to move on to the next match. All right, folks. Iron Villegas is our opponent, and this is a keepable land, I think. We've got the Spikefield Hazard to pad our land count if we don't draw lands. Well, we did, so we're just going to hang on to it then as a removal spell. If later on in the game we choose to make it a land drop, then fine. But for now, we can use it to kill our opponent's stuff. Of course, we have a couple of Bonecrusher Giants, Chandra, and Anger of the Gods. Yeah, these things are reasonable. Yeah. Considering our opponent's on almost certainly just regular, average, everyday, old mono red, we're going to use that as a removal spell right now. We have quite a few pieces of interaction here. So we don't want to give our opponent an opportunity to take advantage of, you know, attacks with it. And we don't want to waste this turn's mana when we could be mana efficient on that turn, so to speak. Do we want to get rid of the Thermo Alchemist right now? Because the Golden Guardian, relatively good blocker as well. Actually, this is one of those cards that's actually not too bad in this matchup, honestly. The 4th toughness, very good. The fact that it has Defender doesn't matter too much because we're not the beatdown for almost the entire game. And then finally, when we are the beatdown, it doesn't really matter. Like, the game just ends, right, typically. So what we really want, typically with this card, is just stand in front of enemy creatures. That's your job. So it does that. You know? It does that pretty well. The fact that we drew into a Brash Taunter, kind of nice here. Again, the combo. Golden Guardian, Brash Taunter. Pretty good, typically. Opponent gonna activate the Den of the Bugbear? They were hovering it like they might. We will block. We'll absolutely block. The combo is not nearly that important, let me tell you. Alright, they just pass. Inconvenient. We really wanted to land there. Another 6-drop, not quite with the Doctor Word, I don't think. Alright, well, I mean, fine. There isn't much else we can do. We could, of course, just kill the Grim Lavamancer now, but there isn't anything in the bin anyway, so Grim Lavamancer is just a 1-1. Doesn't do anything. Alright. Opponent's gonna pass. Fine by us. Okay, well, this is a tapped land. There aren't too many of those in the deck, but, you know, the fact that it isn't one of our 1 or 2 lands, or, you know, first or second land, I should say, means it's tapped land here. But that does mean that Brash Taunter can eventually come down. Should we elect to have our turn taken up in such a way. That does very likely mean we are going to Bonecrusher Giant the Grim Lavamancer here. Yeah, okay. Okay. And they're going to pass? Well, that's fine. We will pass as well. Oh, interesting. You know, I think we would rather have Chandra Awaken Inferno. This is a versatile threat that is very good against our opponent and does not, you know, kind of require them to have creatures or anything. The Brash Taunter, I'm afraid what might happen is we fight, you know, once or twice, and then they just burn the Golden Guardian after one fight or whatever, right? Whereas having this on board this turn really, really puts them in an awkward spot. Yeah, well. We are going to minus. We've got another one to replace it, right? If they want to spend 5 points of burn on our Chandra when we've got Brash Taunter coming down, like, yeah, this is fine, right? This is fine. Opponent, take another one. Tie ball game, folks, as much as life total actually matters. 18 apiece. Iron Villegas. Considering their options. D2 Lava Runner. D2 Lava Runner. Well, folks, we are about to show our opponent a little bit of a trick here. Chandra Awaken Inferno, go on up. Yeah, see, this is kind of what we were expecting here. Oop, nope, not that. Cancel. Yep. From last turn. And that's why we elected to go with the Chandra. The issue here for our opponent is, like, Gold Forge Garrison actually taps for 2 mana, so this gives us enough mana to cast a Bonecrusher Giant out of exile here. No, we can't fight Bonecrusher Giant and Brash Taunter just yet, but our opponent also can't really attack through any of this. That means these 3 cards and the top of the library are going to have to be responsible for taking our life total from 18 to 0, and it's got to happen this turn? That's a tall ask. I think our illustrious mono red opponent is in deep, deep trouble, folks. Alright, it resolves. No attacks. Chandra Awaken Inferno. Pinging, pinging. Opponent drops to 4. Shadow Torch Defiance. Okay. Shadow Torch Defiance is a very, very good card. We have some of them in our deck. Not likely to be good enough here. But we'll see what our opponent can do with it. Maybe they know some secrets about Chandra Torch Defiance that we do not know. Chandra Torch Defiance just ticks down to kill our Bonecrusher Giant. That is a reasonable thing to do. Well, okay, so let's just... -3. And go ahead and attack in. It's true we could have -X'd there, but it's kind of fitting for the Brash Taunter to be able to attack, you know? The Brash Taunter little fella there, he hung back this whole game, playing defense. Just wanted to be able to swing in for the win. Okay, folks, Kazno, our opponent. Good luck, Kazno. This hand looks great, honestly. If our opponent appears to be on a really slow matchup or something like that, we can just, you know, Spikefield Hazard as a land. If it feels like we might want to make our land drops, or just use it as removal, then we can do that as well, obviously. It's a little inconclusive right now. Oh, interesting. Our opponent might be on Mono Black Devotion, which could mean Phyrexian Obliterator, and Phyrexian Obliterator would be very bad for us. Holy crud. Oh, maybe it's just vampires? Okay, vampires is not the end of the world. That would be fine. We're okay with that. Anger the gods. Exile the team. You all may leave. We're at 18, they're at 22. This is a fine situation to find ourselves in. We have 6 cards. They are down to 2 in hand now, after casting Drana, Liberator of Malakir. Yeah, I think we are just going to go ahead and use the Chandra Torch Defiance to come on down. Minus on the Drana. It both advances our board, as well as removing their threat. It is true, this kind of removes the win condition of ticking Chandra up for the ultimate, but I don't think that is likely to be the way this game ends. You know, the ticking up to ultimate thing. So let's go ahead, just plus Mind Stone? You know what? I don't think so. Let's go ahead, just slam a Brash Taunter, I think. This is fine. Just get it onto the board. You know, a lot of things can happen once you just finally get your cards onto the board. If our opponent does not have exile-based removal, Brash Taunter very, very difficult to attack through, you know? Right? Opponent thinking things over. So let's go up, I guess.
This'll be easy.
Sure. Spikefield Hazard. And Anger the Gods. They can save their Knight of the Ebon Legion, and almost certainly will, but there's a whole bunch of different ways to skin that particular cat. So I think we're going to allow that to... Yeah, I think we're just going to allow all that to happen. Slam a Spikefield Cave as a land past the turn. And we wanted to get our extra land down just in case we do top deck either a Chandra or one of our Fiery Emancipations.
Yep.
Hey, folks! Glad we did that thing. Chandra Awaken Inferno, a very, very good card here.
Stay back.
Let's go ahead, go up.
Explosively good pyromancer. No pressure.
And I think we're going to hang on to Shatterskull Smashing just in case we want the interaction. Opponent up to 8 mana now. I don't think you want to attack, opponent. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Kazno realizes, you know what? Actually, there's no way for us to get through this, right? And they're right. That is... They're definitely between a rock and a hard place there. pumping the Knight of the Ebon Legion is normally very, very good. You know, we just block with Brash Taunter. The more you pump it, the more damage you take. And of course, the Death Touch, completely meaningless. Brash Taunter is indestructible. Now, they might have a few more Drain Liberator of Malakir or something, but other than that, there's just not very many flying vampires that are, you know, of an appropriate power level for Historic. So, our opponent likely just very, very few cards in their deck that could interact with this. The fact that we have 2 Planeswalkers and a Brash Taunter complicating their life, I think the opponent's just right to scoop it up. So GG, opponent, GG. All right, folks, we are back, and I am glad to be here. So how did the deck do? Honestly, it went really well. We played 4 games, and we won 3 of the 4. Now, admittedly, somewhere in here, I ended up with an extra Abrade and 1 fewer Sweltering Suns after we faced off against the Angel deck, and we found no removal spells there, and that was the one we lost, was Life Gain Angels. I thought, well, shoot, man, we really were supposed to have an extra one, so I did go up 1 Sweltering Suns, down 1 Abrade. But you should also know that there was another complication when recording this video. There was a problem with the music, honestly, and inside baseball, so I'll spare you the details, but in that recording, we went 3 up and 3 down. So, you know, we won just three straight. So this deck, within 1 or 2 cards here, is 6-1 is the record just for recording the YouTube videos. We played it on stream in the past, and there hasn't been a time it's fallen below about a 70% win rate. No matter how poorly we drew, or, you know, all of that sort of how poorly I played, or anything like that. So honestly, folks, it may look like a little bit of a pile of cards, but it plays very well, and it's just an absolute blast. Whenever I've been having a rough night or something like that, I'll dig in and get to play this deck for a bit, and just honestly have a glorious time. I couldn't recommend it highly enough, and I really encourage you to spend your wild cards on it as well. As far as, you know, some substitutions you might make if you are struggling for wildcards, having a few more of the uncommon and common style removal spells over the rare and mythic rare would be fine. So, for instance, you might not want to spend a mythic rare on the Shatterskull Smashing. Just another Spikefield Hazard. This is fine. I'll get you there. We're trying to pad our land count, because, of course, our conventional land's only at 24. But also still have spells to cast. 28 is kind of a lot of lands, right? If they're just all lands. But when they're also performing a very essential task, being removal spells, and there's a lot of X ones in the format, Spikefield in fact, there's a lot of the time Spikefield has is just better than Shatterskull Smashing. The fact this can come in untapped is what earns it the spot. But the fact that this is just removal on turn 1, even when you're on the draw, you know, if your opponent goes Forest, Llanowar Elves, you need to kill that thing, right? Bolt the bird. So the fact that Spikefield Hazard does that, you can save a wild card there. As far as some of the Anger of the God Sweltering Suns, these are very much on purpose. I would, you know, I would encourage you to make your way towards these cards because they are very good, but there are a number of other options at common and uncommon, such as Fiery Cannonade, deal 2 damage to each non-pirate. Then there is there's a new one, darn it. Anyway, there's several. I'm sure, you know, I don't need to go over all that with you, I guess. But so you could make those substitutions and move this direction. I do think you want some number of these cards. The exiling is very important, and the fact that this cycles when you're not in creature-based matchups is very, very good. So I think that's very important. I think Bonecrusher is honestly kind of pivotal here. There are some games where the opponent's moving slow, so you're just like on, you know, maybe they're on the play and they're missing a land drop or something. So just 2 damage on their end step, untap Bonecrusher Giant, and start attacking with it. Like, that's going to end you some number of games, or it's going to get their life total low enough that when you slam the rest of your things, they can't win. So very, very important. I would not build this deck, I don't think, without this card. Honestly, it is that good. As far as the Planeswalker suite, it's another thing that I wouldn't build it without any of these. I would have some number of both before I ventured in this deck. They are very important. But For instance, let's say you had 4 Chandra Torch of Defiance and no Chandra Awakened Inferno. That's fine. A 4-1 split would be acceptable, but you would want to make your way towards getting some of these. The can't be countered, very, very important, and I highly recommend that. The Fiery Emancipations are just kind of luxury. It is super fun when it goes off, and it's not bad. It really can put your opponent in a bad spot, but it is not required. You could fill this. This could be almost anything else in this deck. Maybe more sweepers, maybe some more spot removal. You know, if you wanted to go more in on this combo, maybe because you have rare wild cards but not mythics or something, fine. You could do that too. But as far as the rest of the deck goes, I do recommend some amount of Graveyard Hate. So the fact that we're padding our lands up to 28, basically, means that we can oftentimes spare Scavenger Grounds. So in non-graveyard-based matchups, it's just a land. We make our land drop, we cast our spells. The fact that we're monocolored means we have that luxury spot. But then in graveyard-based matchups, very, very, very important. So I think this is kind of the right card for this slot. You know, play with it before you judge it, sort of thing. But obviously, if you don't have enough wild cards, this could easily be one where we're never going to be that great against graveyard matchups anyway. So yeah, I mean, maybe these could be maybe some more Field of Ruins or something like that. I did have some Radiant Fountains in here for a little bit. I was trying, and they were fine. Just again, they help us in the mono red style matchups. But either way, it was a ton of fun. I encourage you folks, give it a go, and I will catch you all next time.